Meanwhile, it's one of those times again to check in with the Chief of Police in Battle Creek, Jim Blocker, and the Calhoun County Sheriff, Matt Saxton. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning, Richard.
Yep, good morning, Richard.
You have both been here on numerous occasions. We've talked at length about the overdose crisis. Epidemic was your word, Chief, a while ago. And one of the points that you've made is that a recovery center in Battle Creek certainly would be a tremendous help in order to try and deal with this situation. Summit Pointe jumped to it. In fact, quite quickly got a place in service. And we spoke with some of the folks who are on the front lines of that recently. Last week, in fact. But I thought it might be interesting to have you come back now and talk about the perspective you have about this now that the center is open. And I don't suppose we're putting a dent in statistics yet, but the presumption is this is going to be a big help with that. And so we're here to talk about that today. And as well, you've brought a special guest with you.
I have. I brought with me from the Recovery Center, Summit Pointe's Recovery Center, Jurnis Allen. He is one of the recovery coaches. And I thought this morning it would be important to share the mic. I know the sheriff and I discussed this with somebody that's actually there at the ground level and doing the work.
All right, Jurnis, good morning to you.
Good morning. How are you?
Very well. Thanks for coming today.
I appreciate being invited. Thank you.
Tell us what you've experienced so far.
Well, at the Recovery Center, we have experienced people coming in from overdoses and detoxing, and we do an intake process on them, and we help them recover. We connect them with different organizations in the community as far as linking them to SUD services, mental health services. We do our best to link them to all the resources in our community to lay a foundation for continual recovery, because we see an epidemic where people are just dying under the stigma and the shame and the guilt. I want people to know that I used to be an addict myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I was out there for 33 years. And had a place such as this been available, I would have come out a long time ago. But thanks, right now I have over 16 years clean and sober. And I went into the Life Recovery Program to start my journey. And from there, I have a passion for helping people recover because I've been there.
Right.
As a recovery coach, we help meet them where they are to get them to where they need to be because we've been there. We know the lies, we know the games, we know all the games that they play because we play them ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So we can meet them where they are to let them know you can do this.
So when you meet someone who's in that spot where they might be addicted and inclined to lie to you and you can see that,
yes.
Does it help break the ice with them if you say, I was in your spot?
I believe it does. It eases the tension. It relaxes them greatly because they can look you in the eye and tell, you've been there.
Mm-hmm.
You've done what I've done. You've been where I've been. You've seen what I've seen. You've felt what I've felt. So I know I can relate to you, and it eases the burden of the transition into recovery.
I imagine, though, sometimes it makes it harder because if a person is controlled by the addiction and they know that you know what that's like.
Exactly.
If they're inclined to try and stay addicted, then they know they have to work harder to do that with somebody like you.
Well, the thing about it is a lot of people are afraid of doing the work because they don't know how. We're there to lead, role model, advise, and direct, and help as much as we can because we know the ins and outs. We've been there.
Mm-hmm.
We see all the stigma in the street. We see the stigma of society, but we don't care about that anymore. I'm not ashamed of where I've been.
Right.
I'm not where I want to be, but thank God I'm not where I used to be.
We're talking about the new Summit Pointe Recovery Center with Jurnis here today, who's a recovery coach, but as well with the Chief of Police and the Sheriff, and we'll talk about just what Jurnis has said today and the reactions of law enforcement when we come right back on 95.3 WBCK. We're here with the Chief of Police in Battle Creek, Jim Blocker, the Sheriff in Calhoun County, Matt Saxton, and recovery coach from Summit Pointe, Jurnis Allen, is with us as well. So, gentlemen, as you listen to Jurnis talk about this, is this the music to your ears that you wanted to hear when you were dreaming about how to stop this problem.
Well, it is, Richard. We've been saying all along that this epidemic is not anything that law enforcement or prosecution can take care of itself. We're seeing the community's response to this now. Summit Pointe, Jurnis being involved in helping those addicted. There was a rally just last week that over 100 people came out on was it Monday night, Tuesday night? And so we're seeing the community's support to fight this epidemic. We started out the year, January, February, seeing some of our highest numbers ever since we've been watching them more closely for overdoses and deaths. I believe we're at 23 deaths this year alone.
Right, an impressive number, and not in a good way, to be so early in the year. And the numbers were not good last year, and we presume we'd be on pace to meet or beat that were we not in a position to try and be aggressive here. Is that true, Chief?
That's right. So if you think year-to-date from January 2016 today, 23 deaths, and then over 147 overdoses. And even that doesn't include some that may have happened just as recently in the last 48 hours. We said, just like the sheriff, we knew we needed someone to stand with us in this effort. And so Summit Pointe, they didn't just talk about it. Bronson, Battle Creek, they didn't just talk about it. The Battle Creek Community Foundation, they didn't talk about it. We got together and said we're going to do something. And here we are, probably 9 months later. We have a center. It's up and running. And these are folks that are doing the work. And what's important, when I first met Jurnis on that first day, the center's only been open 14 days, has seen 11 clients already. And when I first met him, I heard the just compassion and the determination in his voice. And I could see that it was just thoroughly being exhibited and coming out of his pores. I knew that we were going to be in good hands, because this is precisely the kind of person, if I were in that situation, or if I had a loved one, you want to drop them off at their door, and you want someone like Jurnis to be able to grab them, pull them in, and start to walk them out, because there is hope. And I think Jurnis is a walking example of that hope.
Mm-hmm. So is there some kind of benchmark for a situation like this that you're able to look at? That is to say, okay, here's a community without a recovery center. Now there is one. How can we expect the statistics to change, and how quickly? I mean, is there a benchmark you can look at to say, okay, we can reduce these stats by 10% in 3 months, or do you look at it that practically?
Well, some of the problem with the stats, and we started looking at this 18 months ago.
Right.
Each individual agency has different stats, not just law enforcement, but the health side of things, EMS, fire. We're all not seeing the same overdoses. So we started compiling with the Substance Abuse Council, trying to get all those numbers together. So we do have an accurate count of the ODs and deaths related to heroin or opiate overdoses in our county. We, in the law enforcement side, with the stats we have, we could see the spikes, and I believe some of those overdose spikes are when bad batches come in,
right,
whether it's cut with carfentanil, fentanyl, too strong. So we can see the rise and fall of the overdoses with bad product coming in the line. So
it might be premature to say this approach is going to have a certain amount of effect on reducing those stats. We know it probably will, but we've got to figure out what the stats really are first.
Well, the effect it has is 11 people reached out for help so far.
Right.
If it was just one, it's already done its job, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And we've changed our strategy and our approach and our tactics, and this is not just here in Michigan. It's a national strategy. So there's a considerable fight on the carfentanil side, on the importation of it. We know that the federal government and the law enforcement partners have reached out to, for instance, the partners in China, and said, we need your support and we need your help. And we've seen enforcement and even what to look for has changed. And so that is, I believe, having an impact. But also on the other side, on the community-based approach, centers like this recovery center are also that second part of this two-front battle, is how are we going to address it? And I think between these two things, right now we have a lot of anecdotal data, but I would suspect here in the next 12 months that you're going to start to see these averages drop.
Okay, within a year, and that would be a significant amount of time. We'll talk more about this in just a moment on 95.3 WBCK. Few more minutes with the police chief and the sheriff, and Jurnis Allen is here too, a recovery coach with the new Summit Pointe Recovery Center. You know, I think it might be, you made this point when we were in the break, that it would be helpful if folks understood how to react if they encounter someone who's in the middle of an overdose situation. What do you do?
Yes, sir. Well, the main thing to do is to remember that the Good Samaritan law is in effect. If you're around someone who has OD'd or in the process of ODing, immediately call 911 because it's not about being arrested. It's not about being locked up. It's about saving a life. It's about helping someone. We need to get busy in this community and grab hold of being our brother's keeper. We are our brother's keeper. I couldn't do it without help. They can't do it without help. We're here to do all that we can. We need to understand we cannot go through this life on our own. We need help. Don't be afraid to ask for it.
It's a well-stated
How can I
point.
help you if I don't know what you need?
Yeah. Is that the issue here sometimes, Sheriff, that the concern is if I get involved here, I'm subject to an arrest?
I think oftentimes that's the concern of the addict or the other person there involved during the overdose. During that rally just this past week, I had several people come up and talk to me about concerns of family members or friends overdosing and want to get them help. And, you know, I explained the Good Samaritan law. Call when that's going on. They see there's more overdoses than what we know about.
Yeah.
And they just come back on their own.
That point was made last week, too, when we spoke with some of the colleagues that Jurnis works with, that these are the numbers we have, but there's probably more that we don't know about. You probably see that, too, Chief. Folks concerned that there'll be some punitive response, even when there's an emergency situation.
Well, that's exactly right. And we were making the point earlier is that, you know, at the point of the overdose, at the point of the fatality, our law enforcement effort is over. You know, that we're now responding, we're reacting. We'd much rather put our time and our effort and our tactics in the front end. You know, go after the distributor, go after the person that is a part of this, the logistics of drug activity. You know, but once it gets in the home and once someone's overdosed, that is why our folks have Narcan now. We are part of that life-saving apparatus and that life-saving system. And at that point, that's what we're more interested in. And then again, to reiterate this point, we now have a place. It was so frustrating a year ago. We had no place to take them.
Yep.
And now today we have a place. And I have to tell you, there's a considerable safety net. It's certainly not a get-out-of-jail-free card, but it's certainly a safety net to get people onto that road to recovery, and that's what's important.
Jurnis, before we go, let's just talk for a second about someone out there who has an addiction, who might be listening. I presume that it's not easy. You don't just walk up to someone and say, "Come with me," and they say, "Okay," and it's that easy. I presume it's work, right?
Yes, it is work. What we endeavor to do is to look them in the eye, softly talk with them, and let them know, I understand where you are. I've been there. I've lived that life. If you want recovery, we're here to help you. Myself and the other recovery coaches, we are passionate about what we do. And it's not a job to us. It's a privilege because we didn't have to be on this side.
Someone could be listening to that right now and can come and see you right now on Roosevelt Street, and it's done.
And also, I'll work at the Recovery Center this afternoon from 3 to midnight, so come see me.
Okay. Thanks to all of you for the update. We'll stay in touch.
Thank you, Richard.